Welcome to USA Biz Party, the party after the party, the chat after the chat. I am your host, Anna Scheller, and it is my privilege to have you join me today as we're talking about a very important topic, a topic that a lot of people don't like to talk about, but it's essential if we're going to be successful in our businesses, and that is prospecting. Before we get into the content for this particular live stream, I want to thank you. If you're joining me live, please say hello in the chat. I will reach out to you and say hello back. If you are joining me on the replay, go ahead and say replay or an R. Let me know that you're with me. I do check the feeds after the fact. Twitter's been a little challenging. I believe StreamYard hasn't quite gotten into that particular thing where we can do a Twitter live, but you can still find me on Periscope, I do believe. I am live on Facebook and YouTube. While I'm thinking about it, can you please just subscribe to us on YouTube? Just click that button, get that notification when we go live, and we'll be sharing more and more about that as we move along. So thank you again for joining me. Our topic this week is prospecting. Why did we pick prospecting? Well, think about it, that usually people kind of relax their sales efforts during the summer. They think, well, can't really reach anybody right now, so I'm not going to bother. Or they get a couple of phone calls in, and the person says, well, they're on vacation. And then before you know it, a couple of weeks have gone by and you're trying to reach them, and now their inbox is full, or they've got multiple appointments going on. So it can be a very discouraging activity, very frustrating, particularly in the summer. And yet you have to realize that what you do for the next 90 days in your sales, that's going to determine what's going to happen for the next 90 days thereafter. Whatever results you have today, that's the result of what you've been doing for the last 3 months. So if you want to change things, then you need to start acting now. So we had some amazing comments in the chat. We have some great people that join us. John Buglino. We have Alex, who is an insurance agent out of Colfax, Washington. Of course, we have our own Esther. We were joined today by Bruce Mayhew. So thank you, Bruce, for joining us. Dana, Theodora, all these wonderful people were joining us and sharing their insights about prospecting. And we all come at it from a slightly different angle. But in order to put prospecting into perspective, let's think about an old-time gold miner. So, matter of fact, if you are familiar with the book, Think and Grow Rich, I want you to try to remember back to the story of the gentleman who heard that he was going to strike it rich in Colorado, bought his equipment. He went out to Colorado. He dug and he dug and he dug and he dug and he dug. He knew that gold was close. He went back and he got more money, and he dug and he dug. He found something, but then it disappeared, and he dug. Well, hello, Alex. Thank you for joining. And he dug some more, and then finally he ran out of money and he quit. He sold his equipment, and he sold it to somebody who decided to do a study to see what was going on with the gold. This gentleman did a study. He did his research and discovered that he only had to go a little farther. It was only another 3 feet until the first person would have hit gold. 3 feet, just 3 feet. And so many times, because our prospecting are not as focused and we don't have as much information, it can seem like prospecting is fruitless and we're getting nowhere. So that's some of the stuff that we're going to be talking about today, is how do we get to where prospecting isn't fruitless, where prospecting is something that we can get enjoyment from, we can build relationships through, and we can get business from, right? Remember, the last 90 days, the results we're enjoying today or not are the result of what we've been doing for the last 90 days. We're going to make a fresh start, and we're going to start doing more and better things over the next 90 days. Even though it's summer, still a good time. Want to be prospecting. So one of the first things I want to encourage you to do is I want you to really identify who that target client is, that ideal client that you're after. Last week, we had a gentleman on by the name of Jeffrey Shaw. Jeffrey wrote a book called Lingo, and he had in the book Lingo, he tells a story about how he wanted to reach a specific kind of client. What he was doing was more high-end than your typical family portrait. He wanted to do the rich and famous, but he really didn't know how. So he decided to do some research. And he actually went to a department store where a lot of the rich and famous where he lived frequented. And he decided he was going to buy a gift. I don't remember who it was for, but he was going to buy a gift. And so he bought the gift. He asked that the gift be gift wrapped. And the clerk who was helping him started to talk about how she was wrapping the gift, why the way she was wrapping the gift was so important and so different. See, a lot of us will tend to put the gift in the paper, we'll wrap it up. No. This person, the way she wrapped the gift was aligned with the way that the customer would end up opening the present. It was very different. You have to buy the book Lingo. But he did his research. When he did that, he had an aha moment, and he realized that the people he was dealing with did not approach life the same way he was used to, because he wasn't a high-end person at that point. What he did is he started to study their habits. He started to understand their language, and he approached them on that basis. And before he knew it, he was wildly popular and doing quite well. So the reason for sharing that story is because we have to do our research. If you want to be Walmart to everybody, there's plenty of them out there. But if you want to be super successful, then you want to study and research the people that you feel called to serve. And I'm using that word to serve very strategically, because we're in business to serve people. When we are able to help people get what they want, then we can get what we want. That's Zig Ziglar's quote. And the way we do it is by putting their interests ahead of our own, seeing how we can help people. Now, another thing that we want to do is we need to go to the places where we can find these people that we're looking for. Now, this is a slightly different prospecting story, but the principles align the same way. How many of you who are on here or who are watching with me live, how many of you have heard of a guy named Jeff Hoffman? Okay, maybe you have, maybe you haven't. If you have, put a 1 in the chat. If you haven't, put a 2 in the chat. I'll wait just a minute while you do that. I heard Jeff speak recently. It was back in January. I heard him speak. And to be honest, I really didn't know who he was. But when I was told what he did, I was like, oh my gosh, that's Jeff Hoffman. Now, Jeff's a very unassuming guy. He shows up and he's in comfortable clothes. He wasn't dressed up in a suit, even though he was addressing small business owners at a very prestigious event. No, he came in comfortable clothes, polo shirt and some nice slacks. But if you don't know who Jeff Hoffman is, I bet you know some of the stuff he's done. How many of you have gone to the airport and instead of waiting in those long lines to get to your ticket, you've simply walked up to a kiosk and gotten your boarding pass and your baggage ticket that way? That was Jeff Hoffman. He actually invented that machine many, many years ago. Ever used Priceline? Jeff was part of a team that put together Priceline. This is Jeff Hoffman. So Jeff was prospecting. He was recruiting. He was looking for somebody who could help him with human resources. It's kind of like a sales, right? We're looking for somebody that we can bring into our organization And in his case, it was somebody that he needed to serve his company. So he could have looked on Indeed. He could have gone to LinkedIn. Not that those are bad things. They're not. What he decided to do was he was asking somebody about it, and they said, you need to contact SHRM. And for those of you who may or may not know what SHRM is a national organization only and solely about human resource management. So he started contacting people at SHRM, and they said, you know what? By the way, if you're joining me live, thank you for joining me. I'm so glad you're with me. Say hello in the chat so I know you're here with me today. Getting back to my story about Jeff, he was talking to this person in SHRM, and SHRM, his contact said to him, hey, you ought to come to our conference. Well, okay. So why would he go to the conference? Because he was looking for the best. He was looking for the one person he knew could help him get to his goals. So he went there. Everybody said, so what do you do? And expecting him to be a vendor. And he said, actually, I'm looking for an HR person. So it was a little different, right? But he went where he knew he could find the people he was looking for. Turned out that this one person stood up and she was the keynote speaker. Guess what? She was the one that had the skill set he was looking for. So he cultivated a relationship with her and ultimately brought her on, even though at the time she wasn't looking for a job. Now, again, why bring this up? Because when we're looking for our ideal clients, sometimes we have to look in the places that don't seem obvious to us. We have to look where they are. We have to look for the people that stand out, the people that relate to us best. Like Jeff found this HR person who was with him, I think, for 9 years and really helped him grow his organization. And if I'm not mistaken, this person is with him today. But if you want to reach your client, you have to go, for example, if soccer moms are your person, it might not be the best place to go hang out on the soccer field. But where are other places that soccer moms go to? They go to daycares. So a good place to have your information would be in the daycares. Another place they probably hang out are gyms. What soccer mom is not looking to get her pre-baby body back, right? So you go to these places and you just start to build relationships with people. This is so important because people buy from people, right? Long gone are the days where we are the experts that people look to for all the information. A lot of what people can learn, they can get off of the internet, right? Yeah, unfortunately, that's the truth. A lot of what they can get. So we have to look to build relationships and build trust with the people that we want to serve. And we also have to be discriminating. What I mean by discriminating is you don't want to discriminate against anybody, but what we want to do is we want to select those people who really value what we do and will pay the price that is comparable or is necessary for us to run our business and to serve them with the very best quality that we possibly can. So really quickly, again, before I go to the last point, the first point is don't give up. Don't be like the gold miner who stopped 3 feet from gold. If he had just taken a few minutes, if he had done that study, he could have discovered how close he was to the goal. So do your research, find out. That way you're cutting your process short so that you're not just trying to grasp every fish in the sea, but the ones that are going to feed your business and feed your family, and you can serve them best. Second, go to where your clients are. Go to where they are. Speak their lingo. Talk to them the way they need to be talked. And then also listen for the people who resonate the most with your message. Last but not least, and I brought this up in the chat, and I would love to hear your take on it, is go to your customers. Go to your customers and vendors. So, excuse me. There we go. Let me share a story to illustrate. You may or may not know a gentleman by the name of Mike Michalowicz. Mike Michalowicz is the author of Profit First, a number of books, The Pumpkin Plan. And he's a firm believer in his book, The Pumpkin Plan. He's a firm believer that you go after the big fruit. Does that make sense? If it makes sense, put a 1 in the chat. But you go after the big fruit. Well, how do you learn about that? Well, a lot of times, especially if we're dealing business to business, the people that we want to help have customers, and they have vendors serving them as well, customers and vendors. So at this particular time, he was working in the IT world. And so he went to his customer. And he asked him what he could do better. And the customer gave him something that he could do better. And then he got real smart and he said, what else can I do to be more valuable to this customer? He went to a vendor who handled the hardware for the customer. He went to that vendor and he said, hey, I've got this contract with XYZ security company. And I'm just wondering, we're doing this for that customer. What can we do to make your job easier? So immediately the customer or the vendor came back and told him that there was a certain way that they could do the cords leading into the hardware that would be really beneficial to the vendor. So they fixed it and they did that. Let me ask you this. Where do you think they started to get referrals from? It wasn't just their customer who now was very happy with their work and they made their job easier, but it was also the vendor. It was also the vendor because the vendor knew that they would have communication to make the vendor's job easier. So if the vendor was out looking for business, got something, he said, hey, you need to talk to Mike. You need to talk to Mike's company because Mike will take care of that aspect and we work really well together. Now, what customer doesn't want to hear we work really well together, right? We all want to hear that. So there's a lot of ways we can get referrals from our customer base, our existing customer base. These are just a couple of the ways that I've discussed that if you really want to know, I want to invite you, go into the chat, do the USA Biz Party hashtag. It will bring up a lot of the comments and conversations. If you do Q1, Q2, Q3, the questions that we have will come up, and a lot of our guests and a lot of our participants use the numbers in order to respond, so you can read their responses. We had phenomenal stuff like like how to get better at Twitter using prospecting on Twitter. So you've heard of this thing called Twitter Spaces. Well, I'm going to invite you to join us this Friday on our Twitter Space at 11:30 in the morning Eastern Time. We take the conversation of the week and we go in deeper. One of our participants, Theodora, she's going to be doing a workshop the following day on how to develop your ideal client profile. Why is that important? Because if you don't want to be grasping everything that comes your way, you want to be very targeted in your message and who you're reaching out to so that your efforts are much more fruitful and much less frustrating. Well, we'll be talking about those things this Friday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time on Twitter Spaces. So you want to join, please do follow us here. Again, subscribe to our YouTube channel and help us get the word out about what we're doing at USA Biz Party. Also, we've got a big announcement coming up. We're going to be doing a meetup in New Jersey on June 16th. So be looking for that information. We should have that out and ready to sign up for in the next couple of days. It will be a free event. So we encourage, if you are in the New York City, Pennsylvania, New Jersey area, I believe they call it the tri-state area, please join us. Make it a plan to join us on June 16th. Thank you so much for joining me today. It was a delight to have you with me. Share this with your friends. Let them know that they too can be learning and growing with USA Biz Party. Make it a great day.